you're sitting at home nodding or smiling or crying. I don't know. Yeah. Looks like we're all good. Yuki, are you fine with the introduction as well, or do you have any questions? Yeah, all good. All right. So 2 things in the introduction. I don't expect any references or anything like that in the introduction, just a paragraph, roughly 100 words, where you reiterate, show me that you understand what the purpose of this task actually is, and also why that's important to the client. So does anyone remember what the communication problem is? Gold star to the first one that can tell me what the communication problem is. I'll give you a moment to think. What is the communication problem? Something about social media? Yes, but it's more than that. What are we actually helping Udi with? All right, so we've got our client Udi. Because they have a problem that they want our help with. It's the purpose of why we're doing this. So what is it that we're actually helping them with? Does anyone remember? I hope that you do, because it's the key bit to why we are doing the things that we are doing. Yes, we're doing something about social media engagement. Can anyone remember anything else? Engagement around what? Because it's not just anything. Anyone else? I've heard from Altavina. What about Ivy, Ellie, Yuki? What are we helping the client with? If you don't know, you're going to have to go and look it up. It's really important. It's the purpose of the whole assessment, right? So you guys should know this. We've been talking about it for 7 weeks. Yeah, something about promotion, but what is it actually that we're looking at? All right. So in the assessment 1 folder, right, in the client brief, so Udi is looking to leverage their existing social media presence in order to do 2 things: create more awareness and more engagement around their Good in the UD projects that are focused on sustainability and social outreach. So that's the purpose. That's what we're helping Udi with, right? That's why we're doing the audit, because we need to see what they're currently doing and what they're doing well or not. And that's what we're going to be helping them with when we're coming up with recommendations. So how can they create more awareness about the Good in the UD projects on social media, and how can they create more engagement around their Good in the UD projects on social media as well? Okay. So if you didn't know that, then copy this, keep it at the top of your desk, print it out or write it up and put it in front of you when you're finalizing your assessment, because you need to keep that in the back of your mind when you're going to be giving advice and recommendations for the client as well. So there's a bit more information down here as well in terms of the social media strategy. So they want to build an online community as a force for positive change in terms of the good and UD. So they really want to increase the awareness of all of these other things that they do. So obviously they sell UDIs, but they also do a lot of these projects called Good in the UD, and you can read more about those projects on their website. Okay. So you guys should be knowing a little bit about that by now. If you don't, make sure that you go and check that, because that bit is important. Okay. Because it also determines your target audience a little bit. The target audience is based on two things. It's based on the client. So your job is to find someone, right, that you think would be a good fit for the client and that would also help them with this communication problem. So what type of people would you want to be targeting, right? If you're OD, in order to create more awareness and engagement around their good and the good projects. So if we look at the target audience, key bit for the target audience is that you need to include geographic, demographic, psychographic, and behavioral details of the target audience. So I would be expecting to see a few different details, right? About their age, how are they single or living in a family? Are they working or studying or both? What are some of their interests? What does their lifestyle look like? Why would they be interested in UDI, for example? And you have to link those ideas to relevant literature. So you need to find some references to support why these types of people. So just keep in mind for the target audience, we're not looking at who UDI is currently targeting, but who you think UDI should be targeting in order to help with the communication problem that we've been given, okay? So when you're writing up this section, as we talked about last week, my suggestion would be to have a few, either you could have it as a few dot points, right? So you could have age, income, for example, I'm just giving some examples, location, work, study, interests, hobbies, right? So my recommendation is to either have a list of dot points like this. I won't include it in the word count if you do, but have a few dot points like this. You could also make it into a table if you wanted to, or you could create an image if you wanted to do that. So I think I can easily insert a smart art, for example, and I could make it into an image if I wanted to do that as well, and add some other details about it if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that now. You don't have to, up to you guys. So make a list of all the different details of the target audience, and then you spend your words, right, roughly 200 words for this section, justifying why these people are a good choice to help with the communication problem, right, that you've paraphrased up here. So why should UDI target these people, this group of people, in order to help with the communication problem? And here is the justification. This is where I would expect there to be in-text citations from research to support if you're saying, well, people that are this and that age, they're really interested in this type of product, well, then you should find something to support this. If you're going to be saying that some of their interests are they're really interested in these types of things, then you need to find some information about this age group and why they're interested in those types of things. So an expectation in here that you have in-text citations to industry or academic, or it could be general public, could come from newspapers or other sources as well, in order to support those ideas. Roughly 200 words for your justification here. Any questions about the target audience? Or are we all good with the target audience? If you're all good, give me a thumbs up. If you have a question, I prefer you to turn on your mic and just ask. But if you don't want to do that, you could pop it into the chat as well. Everyone seems like we're all good. We're on track. Okay, if you are, that's great. Just remember, any questions you have or anything that you're not quite sure of, or if something I'm saying doesn't make sense, just ask me, okay? Because I'm more than happy to explain it again. Okay, so for the evaluation, this has two parts. It has the audit and the SWOT analysis that you guys are doing. So we're really looking here at what is the client doing well on social media and what could be improved on. That's kind of the two key questions that we keep in our mind when we're looking at the social media. I've seen students solve this section in a few different ways. Some just have a few different paragraphs in here. Others choose to have some subheadings. So the most common subheadings that I've seen is to create a subheading for the audit and one for the SWOT. So if you wanted to do that, you could do that, okay? Just depends a little bit what makes sense to you. If you did that, I would be expecting you to, have some information here in the audit, probably a couple of paragraphs where you're describing what you found, what social media platforms they're using, what you found, and what are the things that they're doing well and the things that they could improve on, right? Here, does anyone remember? We talked about it, I think, last week, what the very first sentence should be in the audit. Can anyone remember? Yes or no? Can you guys remember what the first sentence should be? Because we talked about it when we did the worksheet to template exercise in the workshop, but you might have forgotten. Yes or no? Do you guys remember? Well, Savino says no. What about the rest of you? Do you remember? No. Ivy, Yuki, can you save us? Do you guys remember? No from Ivy. I'm going to guess maybe it's a no from Yuki as well. All right. I'll remind you. So the very first sentence here should be something like, Udi currently has a social media presence on, and then all the different social media channels that they have, okay, that they are using. And then you go into more of which ones they're using the most and how they're using them and what they're doing well or not. Make sure to focus on engagement when you're looking at the client and what they are doing. How well are they actually creating engagement, for example, because that relates directly to our communication problem. Okay. I did have a question in one of the classes this morning can I put in something from the worksheet here if I wanted to? Like, could I copy the worksheet with the audit? And my answer was yes and no. So you are allowed to use images or tables or screenshots if you wanted to, if you think that will help you explain what you're talking about. You wouldn't have to, but if you wanted to, you could make a short edited version of the worksheet, but not the entire thing. You can't copy the entire thing into here because it's just too much, and your job is actually to take that information and present it to me, not just to spit out exactly what your research was. So if you wanted to, though, and I'm just going to steal something, we're going to look at this a little bit later, but I have an example. So if you wanted to give a quick overview of the different social media platforms, you could, for example, put in a short overview of the different platforms that they're using and how many followers they have. Or this one has posting frequency as well. You wouldn't need that, or you could have engagement there. Doesn't matter. But that's an edited version, so not the entire worksheet. If you wanted to, you could put that in here, okay? Would not be counted in the word count if you have a table, but you would have to explain it, what the important information here is in this paragraph underneath, okay? I hope that makes sense. Let me know if there's any questions or if anything is confusing you, because I'm happy to explain again, okay? So that's the evaluation. So let's just remove the word count, roughly 400 words, could be a little bit more, a little bit less. For the SWOT analysis, I do expect you to include the table of the SWOT analysis. So I'm just going to put in an example here from an image. So you could use the table from the worksheet, or you could create your own version like this if you wanted to. I don't have a preference, up to you. But you would have to also explain the most important information in here, like we practiced in one of the earlier classes. So that means I would expect that there would be a paragraph that would be explaining the most important information here and what that means. Okay, that's for the SWOT analysis. There might be some overlap between strengths and weaknesses and the audit, right? So you might mention some of those things up here, and then you might focus more on the opportunities and threats in this paragraph here. That could be. Depends a little bit what you found and what makes the most sense to you when you are presenting the information. I don't have a strict, this is exactly how you need to present it. As long as you give me the information I need to know, I'm happy. Okay. So just make sure that you make it really clear though, so that I don't have to go looking for it. It should be very clear to me when you are presenting the information. So the SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threats. Remember, the SWOT is focused on social media only. Okay. And a paragraph to explain the key ideas that you've presented here, the key information, the most important strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Any questions about the SWOT analysis? Anything anyone's wondering? Ivy says she's all good. What about the rest of you? Yeah, Altavino's all good as well. So is Ellie. Yuki, are you all good so far? Yeah? Okay. Just remember, if you do have any questions, let me know. So with the competitor analysis, that's roughly 300 words, right? So it's not super long, this section here. You should have a similar sentence to start where you just say who the 3 direct competitors are that you have found. So I would have a sentence that starts with, Udi's 3 of Udi's direct competitors are blah, blah, blah. And then you say who they are. And then you go into a bit of an explanation here where you explain what some of your findings actually are for these competitors, right? So I've seen different ways of organizing this. Some students have created a subheading for each competitor and explained it. But if you find that there's similar information, like similar things that the competitors are doing well, or that they're doing better than Udi, then you don't want to be repeating the same information again and again. So in that case, it might be better to just divide it into a couple of paragraphs. So it just depends a little bit what you found and what you think makes sense. You've got a roughly 300 words, so it's not a lot. So we're really looking here. What I'm really looking for is what are the competitors doing on social media compared to Udi? Is it better? Are they doing other more interesting things? If so, what are they? Or is there something that Udi is doing a lot better than them on social media, right? Remember, we're only focusing on social media, in which case, what is that? Now, I did mention this earlier. If you found some direct competitors, if you're not quite sure if they are direct competitors or not, you can send through an example to me and I'll let you know if you're on the right track, okay? So I'm still happy to do that if you think you found some competitors, but you're not quite sure if they actually are. Any questions about this section here? Only direct competitors. Yes, Altavino. So we talked about direct competitors in one of the workshops. I can't remember which week that was. Maybe it was week 5, where there is a definition of the direct competitors. So maybe go and have a look at that if you're not quite sure. So direct competitors, they have to they have to be someone who sells a similar product, right? So it can't just be clothing in general. It has to be competitors who are also selling these hooded blankets, right? Or hoodies, or whatever other synonyms you have, right? For that. And it has to be in Australia. They have to operate in Australia because Udi is not in competition with a company that is overseas, right? That is not operating in Australia. Any other questions about the competitor analysis? So make sure there's lots of competitors. So just make sure that you find some that actually are dealing with the same type of product in the same market, right? To the same people. Can't see any questions. I'm going to assume we're okay. But if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Okay. Now, the final bit is the recommendations. We're going to be practicing that a little bit today to make sure that you know what you're doing. But there are 3 things that you need for your recommendations. You need to show where the recommendation is coming from. So the recommendation needs to be it needs to be something that will help with the communication problem, right? So when you're coming up with recommendations, you're going to give recommendations for what Udi could do to help on social media to create more awareness or to create more engagement around their Good in the Ud projects on social media. So that's the purpose of the recommendation. So they have to be related to that. Okay. They also have to be specific. So they can't be too general. They can't be too vague. It can't just be they need to do better on Twitter. You have to come up with an idea for what you think they should actually be doing. So we're going to practice that in not too long. But in terms of presenting this chapter itself, so each of those recommendations, they also need a reference. So when you're saying this is a good idea, you need a reference to support that this is a good idea. This section is approximately 250 to 300 words. As I said, you might find that that's enough. Some of you might find you need slightly more than that. That's fine as well, but they should be relatively short recommendations. I would recommend creating a subheading for each recommendation. Don't call it recommendation 1, 2, 3. Instead, call it what the recommendation actually is, right? So let's see, I'm just going to do 5 recommendations here. And then I'd expect you, so the recommendations aren't super long, right? So they're a little bit short like this. And what each of the recommendations are. The recommendations have to be different. Each recommendation has to be different. 5 different things that you think Udi should do in order to help them on social media, to help them with their communication problem. And based on what you've seen that they do really well, or that they could need to improve on, or maybe you take inspiration from something the competitors are doing that you think, oh, Udi should be doing this as well. And that will really help them. So 5 recommendations. I recommend just stick to 5. 5, you have to have at least 5. That's the minimum requirement. But I'd rather you focus on making sure that these recommendations are really strong instead of trying to make a lot more. So just stick to the 5 recommendations and put efforts into making sure that those 5 recommendations are really good. Okay. As I said, I'll show you guys an example of a recommendation shortly today. So we'll have a bit of a look to give you a bit more of an idea of what they might look like. So you're sure that they're specific enough and that you also know how you can reference those recommendations as well. What do you mean by a specific social media, Altavino? Could you maybe explain that a bit more? If you turn on your mic, that might be easier. So in terms of the audit, right, you have to go and look at what social media platforms are Udi currently using and give me an overview of all the different social media that they have, okay? You will then focus on the 3 most important ones. So you need to show me that you've found all of them, but then you pick the 3 most important ones and focus on those in the analysis. So will be the 3 that you think are the ones that they're using the most or that are the most important for them. And those 3 will probably be the ones that you compare to the competitor and how they're using theirs, for example. Does that answer your question? Yeah? Good question. Any other questions? With the recommendations, we're going to go through it shortly, so we can leave any questions there for now. But just remember, you need 5 different recommendations. I recommend a subheading for each. And then you need to have a citation for each and every one of these references. Okay. Now, in your reference list, you need a minimum of 5 references. At least one of them has to be academic. Honestly, I'd expect you to have more. These are references to literature. So when you're referencing the social media pages that you've looked at, those are not included in the 5. Okay. So we're talking about actual literature. So references to either something you found from industry or something you found from newspapers or something you found as an academic source as well. You need to use QTAPA and put it in alphabetical order. Same as always, anything you put in the reference list, you have to have actually used it in text in the assessment, right? The reason why we keep it to 5 is that you might have found a really good book or 2, and they have a lot of information, and you're using that book in several places throughout the assessment. So that can happen with social media. But if you're using a lot of journal articles, then you're probably, or industry reports or anything like that, then you're probably quickly going to end up with a lot more than 5 references. But 5 is the minimum to pass. But it's not enough to just have them in your reference list. You have to have actually used them in text as well. Okay. Any questions about the references? Or any other questions that you've thought about any of the sections here that you're going to be writing? If you don't have any, that's fine, but we'll move on and have a bit of a look at a recommendation. Okay. Yeah, Altavino says all good. If you suddenly think of something, right, just let me know, right, because we can have a look at it. So what I wanted us to do with the recommendation is I have taken the example from that worksheet to template exercise that we did in one of the workshops. So this is for Uber, right? We've used Uber as the example. Just remember, our client is not Uber, it's Udi, right? So I don't want to see anything about Uber in your assessment. But with this example here, we have one recommendation here. This didn't have a reference though, and we could probably make it even better. So I thought we'd work a little bit on how we can do that. Okay. So the reference that we're looking at is based on the Facebook audit. Audience engagement is particularly high when Uber runs competitions. It's therefore recommended to target new drivers, particularly women aged 30 to 39, with a competition. So when you're writing up your recommendation, you should tell me where the recommendation is coming from. So this particular recommendation was based on the audit that we did. So the audit showed that when Uber had competitions, they had a lot more engagement than anywhere than the regular stuff. So maybe we could do something that, but we were gonna do something new and do a competition that's targeted at our target audience, right? That we defined. So women aged 30 to 39, that's part of who the target audience is. And we're gonna do it with a competition. Is there anything we could do to make this recommendation even better? Is there anything you guys can think of? Because it's fine, but we could make it even stronger. What do you guys think? So we've got in here that, you know, we think they should target new drivers, which is the target audience, and that they're also women aged 30 to 39 with a competition. But what could we do to make this even better? To make it more specific? Any ideas from you guys? Altavina, Ivy, Ellie, Yuki? What do you think? Because there's a very easy thing that we could do to make this even better. Anyone want to try with an idea? Referencing? Oh, absolutely. We'll have to reference, Altavina. We'll do that too. But I think there's something we can do with this sentence here to make it even better, to make it more specific. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we could add a subtitle as well. So absolutely. Let's call it 3.1 competition, right? Because that's what I'm missing an I. Competition. So 3.1, that came out a bit weird, but 3.1 competition, right? Because that's what this is going to be. But there's one other thing that you could do to make this even better. Yes, thank you, Altavino. So what it's actually going to be about. So it's just a couple of words that are missing, right? There's a lot of different opportunities here for what it could be about. But if we were a little bit more specific on what the competition is about, that will improve that, right? So if we think about this target audience, and this is the same target audience we used at the example when we were talking about target audience earlier in this unit. So they were really interested in flexibility, and they were really interested in a supplementary income, or so there's probably something we can do a competition about, you know, what is flexibility to you, or a competition about there's lots of different things, right? It could be, it doesn't have to be that either. It could be many ideas that we have, regardless of what it is, including that, what the competition was going to be about would make it a lot better. Okay. So that's step one. Step number two is absolutely referencing. Right? So if we think, right, you're sitting at home now, imagine you're sitting at home. This is your recommendation. You're writing it up for your assessment. You know you have to have a reference. What do we look for? What would you guys Google if you were going to find a reference to support this idea, right? What would you look for? Any ideas? What do you guys think? So we need a reference. What do we need a reference about? in order to support this. So that means we need to know what's the main idea here. What are we really saying? Yes, something about engagement, right? So absolutely, because engagement is part of the goal, right? That's relating to the communication objective. So we're going to do something about engagement, but something more specific. It's about why are competitions good for engagement, right? So that's what we really need to reference, because I need to explain why it's a good idea to have a competition here, right? Why would I? Because we could choose anything that we recommended, right? So why is a competition a good idea? So if I'm going to strengthen this argument, I need to find a source, right? And the very first thing that I imagine you guys would do is to Google, right? So let's just Google social media engagement competition. We can see I could also put in contest as an alternative here, but let's just stick to competition. That's a really easy, rough search, okay? So I'm just going to see, I can see there's some scholarly articles, so we might want to have a look at those. And there's also a lot of here about how to run a contest, simple contest ideas, amazing contests. The problem with some of these things that I get here, and that you will see in a lot of the industry content that you find if you're Googling, is that there's a lot of information here about what to do, right? There's a lot of how to create a good competition, but not a lot about why a competition is a good idea, right? And that's what we're really looking for, because we're really looking to explain and justify why this is a good idea, right? So that means we might have to maybe include the why, right? To get some more relevant sources here. Probably we're also going to find more in terms of the why in an academic source. So this was the result of the academic from Google Scholar, right? So maybe some of these are relevant. I'd have to read through the titles, right? In order, so measuring competition for attention in social media, well, that could be something potentially. I mean, we're not about women's soccer, but there might be some ideas there, right? That could be good. Yes, you could, Altavino. What you would have to do if you're finding websites, right, like this, is you just have to use that critical thinking from assessment 1.1. So when you're looking at any of these sources, you just have to look at where it's coming from, right? So this one isn't a good one because this is just ideas. It's not really based on the why, but I have to look at what is this, right? Are they trying to sell Linux Cloud or whatever that is, or are they actually giving some good ideas, right? So I would just have to make sure that I do that test to check that this is a reliable source. And if I think it is, then yes, you can use it. Does that answer your question, Altavino? Yeah? Okay, great. So that's one of the things that I could look for. So I could look for, because that's really part of the purpose here, right? I need to figure out, well, how will the competition help with engagement? I need some proof, right? I need some evidence from the literature. I could also look at what women aged 30 to 39 like. So what do they want from social media? So I could see, could I find any link between women aged 30 to 39? Do they actually like competitions? And if I found some information about that, right? So I could just start or just women in general, right? So I could do another search. Let's do a general Google search on women, social media, competition, engagement, right? And see what I find. And you can see there's some Google Scholar searches here as well. Don't know how good they are, but maybe. I might have to make women main search here. And maybe there's some things in here, right, that talks about women. that might be relevant if that's what I was looking for. But don't forget that I have also given you guys the social media report, right? So I mentioned that last week. So I have also given you the yellow report. And the yellow report talks about a lot of different things in terms of why people use social media, what they use it for. It breaks it down into age groups. So it can be a wonderful source for your target audience. And it can also be really good for justifying different things throughout your assessment or for your recommendations potentially as well. So if we have a closer look at that report, I'm just going to look at the table of content, right? There's some stuff up here about how much time people in general spend on social media. This is all Australian, so all Australian audiences, how much time they spend, what social media platforms they use, when they're online. All of that is sort of general information that none of that is about competitions, right? Where I might find more about that is here under social media and consumer behavior, what they're following, sharing content on social media. So that tells me a bit more about what they're interested in, right? And there's a few things in here as well. So I'm just going to click on page 19 here and have a quick look through. There's some general statistics here that could be interesting. And the great thing about this report is that you get to see the questions, and then it breaks it down between men and women and what age groups are. So this one here is what they use social media to research services for when they want to buy. Could be interesting, but not really about competitions. There's something here. Do you follow businesses or brands? Interesting in general, but not really for me right now. Which of these things would you like to get from businesses or brands? That's a little bit more relevant, right? Because that's talking about what these guys are interested in on social media. So if we zoom in, let me just try to zoom in a little bit, right? So if we have a closer look at this one here, I can see that discounts, giveaways, product information, tips and advice, entertainment, and invitation to events, they're listing some of the top 10 things, right, that people are really, really interested in on social media. And if you think about a competition, why would any of you enter a competition? If you see a competition on social media, why would you participate in it? What would be the reason that you would participate in a competition? Prizes, right? Giveaways or discounts, right? So that means a competition is a really great way of fulfilling that need, right? That these people are really interested in. They really want discounts and giveaways, but we're doing it in a more engaging way because competitions, that means they have to engage with what you're doing. There's a bit more buy-in, right? A bit more like they feel like they're part of something rather than just putting up, hey, you get a 20% discount. Here, they have to actually do something for it, right? And then they win the really great prize or the really great discount or whatever it might be. So what I could do, and this is just one example, okay? So what I could do when I'm improving this recommendation is that I could then put in, for example, okay, so a recent report, and this was the census 2020. Page number was it on? Page number 21. I'm just going to put that in, page number 21, right? So a recent report showed that discounts, how many percent was that? For women, which we're targeting, it was 66% discounts and 53% for giveaways. So it's discounts. Let me just put in 66%. And giveaways, that was 53%. Are among the top types of content women want from businesses on social media. And that would be a really good, so if I did that, that's a really good justification, right, for why I would have this. If I want to bring it home though and complete the circle and make it really, really good, I make it obvious with the link to the competition as well. So then I would add, and the competition is well suited for this type of content, right? Now I have a really strong, clear argument here. If you can manage to do something similar for your own recommendations, you'll have some really good, strong recommendations. So just remember, they need to be relevant to the target audience, right, that you've identified, and they need to be relevant to the communication problem. So there's 3 aspects to a really good recommendation. It is linking it to where the recommendation is coming from. So the recommendation could come from the client brief, right, from the communication problem, in which case you would say based on the client brief, right? It could come from the target audience that you've decided on based on the target audience, and then you justify what the recommendation is. It could come from the audit, like in this example. It could come from the SWOT analysis. It could come from the competitor analysis, right? Could come from any of those or a combination of those things. But a really good recommendations, you'll have a sentence, no more than that, a short sentence of where it is coming from. Then you have a nice specific recommendation where you say what it's going to be about. So we already know this is going to be about Facebook, right? So the recommendation is for Facebook. They're targeting new drivers with a competition, and then we need to add what that competition is going to be about, right? That makes it a really nice specific recommendation for social media. And then we have a reference to support that. Why that's a good idea. Does that make sense? Any questions after looking at that? So this is one. I could have used the census report, but I could also have used some of these other sources, right, that I found as well. So this one relates to what these people are really interested in, that they like things that come from competitions. But I could have talked about competitions in general and how they create engagement, okay? Or I could have talked about what the competition is going to be about and how that creates engagement as well. That could also be part of my reasoning. Any questions after looking at that? No? Okay. So if you don't have any questions, I'm going to get you guys to practice this, okay? So if we go into group 1, I'm just going to put you guys into 2 groups. So it will be 2 and 2. What I would like for you guys to do is to see if you can come up with another recommendation for Uber. So I have included, so if you go to the OneNote and you go to the collaboration space and week number 7, you'll see that there's the example we just worked on. So I'll leave that there so you can have a look at it. And then we have group 1 and group 2. And if you scroll down a little bit on group 2, you'll see that I've included all this information from everything. We've used this, we've created this so far throughout the semester. So the communication problem is really to attract more female drivers and create more engagement, right, with female drivers on social media. The target audience that we made as an example for this one are women. They're 30 to 39. They live in Brisbane. They have children. They want something flexible, and they're looking for a supplemental income. They also have their own car. Okay, so that's the target audience that we decided these will be good to target in order to help Uber get more female drivers and create more engagement on Facebook for that. With the audit, this is the example that was in the week 2 e-content. So we've got the overall social media presence of Uber. Like we've got their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn, a little bit about how many followers they have and how often they post. And then we've done a more in-depth, you would pick 3 to do a more in-depth analysis of, but I've got 1 here as an example for Facebook. Where we've looked at what types of content they post, how often they post, how much engagement they're getting on different types of posts, and overall what we think about their social media presence. Now, the recommendation I created an example of were these competitions, because what I found when I did the audit was that compared to regular posts, every time they had a competition, they had up to 1,000 comments instead of 60 to 90. They had up to 2,000 likes instead of 60 to 120. And they had up to 300 shares instead of 2 to 20. So competitions are working really well for Uber, right? So then my idea and my recommendation was to take something they were already doing, but target it to my purpose, right? To help more female drivers, right? So that's where it comes in. Okay, we're going to target these specific people and we're going to make the competition something that they would be interested in, right? What I would challenge you guys to do in your groups is to see if you can find anything else. Have a look at all of this, right? The target audience, the audit that we've done with the information that we have here. What other recommendations do you think Uber could make? All right. So what I want you guys to do, it's 3 things. I want you to brainstorm first, have a read through it and brainstorm what else could they do. Put it in here because I'll give you guys feedback as you go. All right. So think about possible recommendations, put it in here. What possibly could you recommend that they do? Decide on one and write a short paragraph, just 1 or 2 sentences, not a lot, what the recommendation actually is, and then see if you can find a source. Can you find a reference to actually support that recommendation? Okay. Is that clear before I put you guys into some groups? Any questions? So make sure that you put it into the OneNote so I can see it and I can give you guys some feedback as you go as well. I'm going to give you guys, how much time do we have? I'm going to give you guys 15 minutes to do this, all right, to have a look, see if you can come up with some recommendations and see if you can find a source to justify it. I'll come into your group if you want to, just let me know, but I'll be looking at the OneNote as well and giving you feedback as you go. Okay? Are we all good? Are we ready to get put into some groups? Yeah, Altavina says yes. What about the rest of you guys? Are you still with me? Ivy, Ellie, Yuki? Yes. Yuki, you still here? Yeah, all right, great. I'm going to put you guys into some groups now.
Hi, good morning. I feel really, really sleepy, I'm going to die. Yeah, yeah, you are early than 1 hour. No, 40 is egg. Yeah, now is 8 p.m., 8:14, 8:40. A.M. Is this you're in you at 7 p.m., right? The 7 p.m. Oh my god. Actually, I'm not finished. I have not done anything about this subject. Oh my god, is this 5 day? I think I'm not sure. Yeah, yeah, extension, but extension that's only more 48 hours. Actually, it's not much. You already need to done it. I think I did bad in the subject teach by Michael. Yeah, actually I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Damn it! I just done that. We need to find some method to for the how can I don't know. I don't know what I did. I hope I can got full. I can get full. Yes, same as me. I think he's a little bit harsh. Oh my god, I'm quite scared. But I'm not sure the other teacher. I just want to pass. Uh, yeah. Sorry, how can I find the one note actually? Okay, thank you. But this month some we still have two assessments, right? Uh, we also have the we also have one of the lesson. Yeah, the teacher Cyrilo. Oh, thank you. I saw the link. Yeah. Also, we have the group statement. I think we need to do it. We need to done it. Uh, before Sunday, right? Yeah. We need to did something every week, I think, about the yeah about the final assessment. Actually, I forgot the number. I forget the number of the subject. No, what is called? What is the teacher? I forgot. Ah. And what is your question?
Hello, guys. How are you?
Hi.
Have you got any ideas? No? Nothing? What are you thinking? Yeah. So is there anything, so based on what we've read here, right, from the audit, is there anything else you think? So I took advantage of competitions, right? But is there anything else that they're currently doing that they could improve on or that they could tweak a little bit towards the target audience, or anything they're not doing very well that they could improve on? What do you
I'm
guys
not
think?
sure because I think they are smarter than me.
Well, it's just a matter of thinking in the right way, right? When you are looking at it. So let's just think a little bit about what could they do if we're looking at what they're currently doing on Facebook, and we think about who the target audience is, right? They're women 30 to 39, they've got children, they're looking for something flexible, supplemental income. They really want to attract more female drivers, right? And create some engagement on social media. What do you think Uber could do based on the information we've seen here? What are some of the things that they are currently doing? Yeah. So it's quite inconsistent across all of their channels, right? Except for YouTube, I think. So if you were going to do something with inconsistent posting, right? So let me just make a note of that up here, right? So we could have post more frequently, but you need to then identify on which platform, or if it's several, right? Up to you. So what platform or platforms do you think they should invest in, right? In order to reach this target audience, and about what, right? So you'd need to then think about, if it was going to be post more frequently, you'd have to think about what it was going to be about and on which platforms, right? So, and I would also say, instead of more frequently, so how many times can be a bit difficult to define. So you can get away with that by saying they just need to be more consistent. So that means you don't have to say they have to post once a day, because maybe they don't, but maybe it needs to be more consistent, right? Maybe because at the moment, when we're looking down here, it's not very consistent. It's like sometimes it's months between things, or weekly, or not really. It's a little bit all over the place, right? So you could say that they should do something more consistent, but you'd have to then also suggest which platforms about what. So what do you guys think? Which platforms should they focus on? Should it be all of them or just some of them? What is your instinct? Yeah. So either Instagram or Facebook would be a really good pick for this one. So in Australia, women this age, they all have a Facebook and they are all really active on Instagram, right? So that means that you could then select, it could be Instagram, right? So Instagram is really good, right? For posting content. So that probably means, do you think it should be a video or a photo, or what do you guys think? Yeah. So videos and images, right? Okay. What do you think they should post about for this target audience here? What would they be interested in? Yeah. Right. How flexible driving for Uber is. You can turn that into a sentence, right? That the recommendation based on the audit, right? One recommendation is for Uber to post more consistently on Instagram using videos and images about how flexible driving for Uber is. That's a great recommendation, right? So it's not as hard as you might think. You just have to have the right way of thinking about it, right? Which is why we're practicing. And there are other things in here as well that you could do. I'll talk about that. But what I would like for you guys to do next, try to write this up as a sentence, right? Same as like this, right? And then see if you can find anything to justify, right? So when you're looking for a justification, then you could talk about, there's two things that you could mention here. Either would be fine. Either you could find a source that talks about how being consistent with your posting helps engagement, right? Or you could talk about how videos and images help engagement. Either of those would be fine. See if you can find anything. Okay? Yeah? All right. I'm going to give you guys 5 more minutes and then I'll bring everyone back. All right? I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not sure because in Hong Kong, the older generation use the Facebook more. Yeah, yeah. So I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure how to write in academic. No, how to write, how to make the writing more look like academic. Yeah. Okay. Mm, I don't know.
Okay, so apologies for interrupting you mid-conversation. I'm just bringing everyone back to have a little bit of a look. I know you guys found this a little bit difficult, okay? And this is why I've been telling you for weeks that you needed to get started, because you need time to think about your recommendations, to come up with some really good recommendations based on the research that you've done. But let's just have a look at some of the ideas. And I'll mention a few others that we could have had as well. So if we have a look at the ideas, so we have from group number 1, your idea was that they should post more frequently or consistently. And then I asked what platform and about what. So the decision was, well, Instagram, because women at this age group, they're really active on Instagram. It should be videos and images. You could have both, or you could choose one of these. It would all be fine. About how flexible driving for Uber is. So we've got flexible time and location here. And you guys came up with the sentence, based on the social media audit, Uber often posting consistently in almost all of their social media, providing posts related to flexibility on Instagram consistently will increase audience engagement. So I think that's a really good start for a recommendation. what I would do is make it a little bit more clear and say it is therefore recommended to post more consistently about flexibility on Instagram, right? And then which will increase audience engagement. I've got something wrong there, consistently, about flexibility on Instagram. So that's something you would do in your editing process, right? I know that I didn't give you guys enough time for that, but just make sure that you make it clear what the recommendation actually is, so I don't have to guess, because I only know what you guys write. I can't grade you on what you might think or what I know that you know, right? I can only grade you on what you've written in your assessment. So this is a great recommendation, right? So what we would need to do then is to find a reference. So what I would look at here, right, if we're doing the search again and just using that. So posting consistently, there it is already on Instagram benefits, right? So here to how to increase, so this is an example. This is from Later, and they are selling their product. How to increase engagement on Instagram with Later. So I'm not going to use that source. But maybe I could find something else, something that's a bit more credible. There's something here from a social media marketing strategist. So that sounds a little bit more trustworthy from an industry expert. I'd have to just check this person and verify that they know what they're talking about. And we can see that there might be something there, or there could be something in some of these other things. Were there any scholarly articles? If I change social media, consistency, social media benefits. So then I find some scholarly articles. So here, the benefits of harmonious brand communities. So that could be about consistency, right? So maybe there's something there. There's some guidelines here. There's something here about etiquette and what to do. So there might actually be a lot in some of these sources here that are a mix. So Google Scholar, not all of it is academic, just so you know, some of it is industry. I'd have to have a look at it to see. So, but I can see there's a lot of different articles here that might be suited to justify that, right? So that's the bit that is missing from this one. In group number 2, we talked about that you could also use this driver story. So Uber also posts driver stories, right? But they're not really focused on women. They're just general stories from drivers sharing about what it's like working for Uber. So we could take that idea, right, and instead focus it on having a female Uber driver with children share her experience about how great Uber is for supplemental income, right? So we could take the same idea. So based on the Facebook audit, Uber shares a lot of stories from their drivers. It is therefore recommended to create a series of posts with stories from female Uber drivers with children, focusing on their experience driving for Uber as a supplemental. So that could be one recommendation that I have. That's very good for the communication problem and the target audience, right? And then when I have to have the justification, right? That's missing here. There's a few different things that I could look for here that's missing here as well, right? So, Missing from here as well. So I could find something here about stories. So again, let's just do social media stories engagement. And actually, there will be a lot about stories, using engagement behaviors, sharing stories. Not all of this will be as relevant. We'd have to go through it a little bit. You could also have, so you can see Google is really good at coming up with other things to search for that relates. Another thing could be storytelling. So that's another word. And there you have the power of social media storytelling. That sounds relevant, right? So similar process for you guys. There are other things we could do here as well. So they could have done driver stories. They could have done safety videos about how sharing some of the tips and tricks as a female Uber driver, how they feel safe and those types of things. We could have gone live on Facebook and had a Q&A with a female driver, what it's like to drive for Uber. That could have been a recommendation. We could have decided that we're going to just do, well, videos are really great. So we'd like to do videos about how it works, a day in the life of a woman with children and driving for Uber. And you could make a short video for that. That could be another idea. So there are many different things that you can think of, but it requires some thought, right? As you saw just now, it requires a bit of work. So we need to make sure, you guys need to make sure to have a look. I've left it all here, right? So you guys can revisit it. But when you're writing up your own recommendations, make sure that they're focused on the communication problem for Uri and the target audience that you have decided on. Okay? Now, we're going to spend the rest of today getting you guys into some groups because we don't have a lot of time left from the tutorial. Now, since I only have the 4 of you in class today, I think the 4 of you should be the group of 4. And the 2 who haven't been attending, they will be their own group, okay, from this tutorial. So what I would like to do next, so let me just get my slides back up. So just give me one moment. What I would like to do next is to get you guys together as a group of 4. I'm going to put you guys into a breakout room of your own. There's a couple of things I want you guys to do before the end of today. So this is for assessment 2, right? I want you to download the team agreement contract from the assessment 2 folder. I'm going to show you where that is. I want you guys to have a chat, introduce yourselves, exchange contact details, and I want you to discuss what you think you should do, some top tips for successful teamwork, okay? So because you'll be working together, you might have different schedules, all of those things. What are you guys going to do to make sure that this is going to be great teamwork and everyone's going to be pulling their weight, everyone's going to be contributing, right? Because if I learn that one of you isn't doing the same thing as everyone else, then I might exclude you from the group, okay? So just so that is very clear. I've set up something in OneNote for this. So let me just share my screen. So in our collaboration space, you will see there is something called assessment 2 groups. I've put your names in. So we've got a group of 4 and we've got a group of 2. So the 4 who are here, you guys get to work together in a group. In terms of what I want you guys to do next, I want you to put in your group names. You already know that, but put in your full names. Discuss what your top tips for successful teamwork actually is. And I want you to have a look at the team contract, okay? So before tutorial next week, you guys will need to insert, right, that team contract into this Google Doc here for group number 1. So you guys are going to be group number 1. Now, where you can find the team contract is in assessment and assessment 2 and you can see the team contract here. These two are the same documents. So the team contract just goes through a little bit. How are you going to communicate? Talk about what grade you want to aim for. When are you free to meet? All of those things, because you guys will be working together as a group over the next 3 weeks, and you'll be working in your groups in class in your tutorial as well, because you are now a team, right? It was fairly easy for us because we're a small little group already. So that worked out nicely with your group of 4. But I'm going to put you guys into some breakout groups now. We only have a little bit of time, so we've got around 10 minutes. So just make sure that you guys exchange contact details. So priorities are exchange contact details, decide how you're going to communicate, what app are you going to use, how quickly do you have to respond, agree on that. Is it going to be an hour, a day, 2 days, 5 hours within the next day? Decide on it and talk about what grade, okay, you're aiming for. So I'm going to put you guys into a breakout group now. Make sure you exchange all of that. And before next week, you should have a meeting and fill out the team contract. Okay. So I'm putting you guys back into a breakout group now so you can exchange contact details and set up a little bit of a plan. Okay. If you have any questions, just let me know and I'll pop into your group. So 10 minutes, I'll put you into a group now. Okay, so I'm just bringing you all back from your breakout room. Did you guys get to exchange contact details and have a bit of a chat? You all know how to contact each other? Yeah? All right, great. So as I said, if you didn't get to it, you should discuss some teamwork experiences and talk about some top tips for you guys to be successful. That is also part of that team agreement. So you have ways to contact each other. Make sure that you guys meet and complete the team agreement before class next week. Okay, when we will really get started. We're going to do a lot of important work next week to get you guys started on your strategies. Don't forget that the assessment 1.2, your social media analysis, is due this Friday before 11:59 p.m. If you do need an extension, just remember you have to apply for it. So have a look at the processes for QUT. It is worth 30% of your final grade. So make sure you put every effort in to set you up for success for this next step. I hope it helped today, looking through the template and working a little bit on those recommendations. What we're going to be doing in about 40 minutes in the workshop is we're going to unpack assessment 2. So strongly recommend coming along to that workshop because we're going to work on what that assessment actually is that you guys are going to start working on as a team next week. And we'll also work through a little bit what is actually a social media strategy. Okay, so that's going to be the key focus in about 40 minutes. So great work today. I know you guys put a lot of hard work in, right? So keep that up and I will see you guys in about 40 minutes. All right. I'll see you guys later. See you soon is the answer. All right. Bye, guys. Bye. See you guys.